let's add a data component to our items in Fabric. If you want to go deeper, the 26.x modding courses are linked down below. 30 plus hours covering complex block entities with fluid and energy handling, custom mobs, custom networking, and even custom biomes and dimensions. Everything you need for 26.x, all in one place, linked down below in the description. Alright, we find us back and tell you once more, and in this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at data components. So data components are a super awesome and versatile system allowing us to basically save more or less sort of arbitrary data on item stacks. And this is super freaking cool because it allows us to do all sorts of insanely cool things. And I'm telling you, like, you're going to see this in a very, very sort of simple example. It's going to be super, like, it's going to be like low level. And I'm telling you, you could do insane things with this. So for the time being, though, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when you right click with the chisel, it's simply going to save the last chiseled coordinates on the item stack. That's basically all that we're going to do. It's not the most exciting, but it is going to illustrate on how to use the data components, which are super simple to use as well. Like it's a really cool system. And I think of the systems that were added in the last couple of, updates, basically, this is like one of the coolest and the most versatile. Regardless, let's take a look at how this works. So in our tutorial mod package, we're going to make a new package. I'm going to call this here the data package. And inside there, we'll make a new Java class called the mod data components. There we go. And this is going to look kind of like this. We're going to need a public static void register data components method over here, where we're going to call tutorial mod.logger with an info over here registering data components. And then this is for what exactly? That is the tutorial mod.modID. There we go. And of course, we're going to call that method immediately in our tutorial mod class over here, mod data components.register data components. And then we're going to make a helper method helping us to register this. It's just a little bit easier. This is a private static, then angled bracket uppercase T, and then data component type of type T. This is what we're going to, and we're going to call this the register method over here with a string name parameter as well as a unary operator. Looks a little bit crazy, but it's going to make this a little bit easier. And this unary operator is of type data component type.builder of type T. Highly recommend you check out in the description. There is all the code is available there in the GitHub repository, and there we go. The register method is going to return registry, making sure we choose net Minecraft core, so registry.register. Then built-in registries dot data underscore component type, then an identifier from namespace and path with tutorial mod.modID and passing in the name parameter. And after the first closing parenthesis, we're going to use the builder operator over here, calling the apply method, passing in data component type dot builder, this time the method over here. And after the second closing parentheses, we want to call the build method, and then no errors should be present over here. There we go. And then we can use that register method to actually register our custom data component type. Super simple as well. Public static final data component type of type. And this time it has to be of a type that we actually can save. Now, what you will find is that this T is not bounded by anything. So in theory, you can add any custom data type. If you create a class with 18 strings and 180 different integers and you could do whatever you want. You can create whatever type of data structure you so choose. The only thing that you're going to need is you need codecs for them. You need a normal codec and a stream codec for them. So that's very, very important. In our case, we're just going to use the block pause, and this is going to be the coordinates. Equal to the register method, we're going to call this the coordinates. There we go. And then we want to call the builder. This is the unary operator over here. We're just going to call this builder and then do the arrow to signify this is a lambda expression. And then I'm going to say builder dot persistent. This is going to save it onto, well, this is basically going to make it so that it saves it on disk when you leave the world. This is using blockpause.codec. And then we also call the network synchronized, and that uses blockpause.streamcodec. So you can see that you need the persistent in order for it to save on, like, after you move out of the world, and then the network synchronize is usually needed so that it properly synchronizes via the network. In theory, I think it should also work without the network synchronized, but there's no reason why we wouldn't add this. You know, both of them are the same anyway, so there we go. In terms of the codec here, obviously codecs can get quite complicated quite fast. Here, the thing is that we will still talk about codecs in a future tutorial in a little bit more detail. So if you do have a completely custom data type that you want to use here, you will need to make your own custom codec for it. Yeah, basically either you just try to use, you know, normal ones that we have right now, or you can also play around with this a little bit, take a look at a couple of codecs, and then maybe at some point you also will understand those as well. There are some resources online about the codecs on, I think, in the NeoForge wiki. I don't know if the Fabric wiki has anything on that, but yeah, basically either of those is totally fine. Now, having added the data component type, we can move on to the chisel item, and this is way more straightforward than you might think. Because what do we want to do? Well, we basically just, when we have this particular key over here, we simply just want to add the data component. So we're going to say context.getItemInHand.set, and then we're going to set the data components.coordinates to context.getClickedPause. So whatever the value of the click position is what value is going to be written onto the item stack in our hand under the, you know, coordinates data component. And what we can then do is something really cool inside of the append hover text method that we already have. We can ask, hey, if item stack dot get, and then we can get the data component. Does it not have a has? It does have a has. So if data item stack dot has, and then we say mod data components dot coordinates. So if the item stack has the particular coordinates saved on its item stack, we can simply say builder.accept and then add a component.literal, let's say last block chiseled at, and then we can simply say item stack.get, and we are going to get the mod data components.coordinates. And boom, just like that, we're now, when we hover over this, actually seeing where the coordinates, well, where this particular chisel last chiseled a block. Is this the most flashy of things to take a look at? Absolutely not. I absolutely agree with this. But for a foundation, this is already really, really freaking cool in my opinion. And if we wanted to remove this, let's say, for example, we would override the use method, which gets called when we just right click this in the air. And let's say, for example, we say a player dot is crouching, right? So while we're right clicking the chisel, then what we could do is we can say player dot get main item in hand, remove mod data components dot coordinates, boom. And that is going to remove the coordinates completely from this. Here, I would say that we will get a success on the interaction just so that it definitely right clicks. Let's actually do it in here. And here we're going to pass through the super. I think that makes the most sense actually. So we're going to just do the use level player hand. There we go. That's how we want to set it up. And then we can also, in theory, delete the data. So we can see how we can delete the data component. We can set a new value of it. We can see if it has it. And we can also get the value from it. Super simple, like incredibly easy to use. And I would say, let's just jump into the game and see if it works. All right, I found it back in Minecraft. And let's just see if I chisel this and I hover over it. Look at this. Last block chiseled at minus 116.106 minus 371. And that's the only one as well. Now, this is already really cool. And of course, if I were to change this, you can see it overrides it. If I right click it while crouching, then you can see, boom, it is now removed. So that is really freaking cool, but come on, that's only half the fun, because of course what we also want to do is we want to change the texture depending on if it has one of those coordinates over here. So let's do that as well. This is actually also way more straightforward than you might think. So for this, of course, we're going to change the model way of doing this. So where is it? It's down here. The chisel right here, instead of generating the flat item, well, we're actually going to do it slightly differently. I'll once again copy over the contents of this. This is all available to you down below, of course, and I will explain what each of the different things means. So generally speaking, if we take a look at this, this is basically the same thing that's happening right here, right? This is, I mean, like you have two different, in this case, it's not identifiers, it's unbaked item models, but you have basically two of those where we get plain models. Here we get a suffix variant and we're creating a model over here. So it's like almost the same thing. And then we're also just calling the item model output. This is the one for the items JSON file where we're basically saying, hey, we want a items JSON file for the chisel. Then we need to make this new client item over here. And we say, hey, if there's a condition over here, and the condition is, does this have a component? And if it does have the coordinates, then we're using the used chisel. And if it does not have the component, then we're using the just normal chisel. That's pretty much literally it. And that's all that there is to it. It's really not that crazy. And the only thing for us to add is the chisel underscore used as a texture. That's going to be item textures over here, because that's the suffix over here, as you can see. So it's going to use the chisel name, chisel, and then add underscore used as a suffix over here. And both of those are still going to be in the flat handheld item. So that is not going to change. It's just going to change the texture, and it barely will change the texture. It just makes it a little bit brighter here in this case. You can think of all sorts of changes to the texture in theory that you want to do, but this is still really cool. Let's rerun the data gen in order for the items JSON file to update, and also the second item model JSON file to generate. But you'll find the chisel right here, boom. You can now see that it does exactly what we said. Hey, this is a condition, and what the condition is has component, meaning if it has the coordinates component on false, we're just pointing to the normal chisel, but if it's true, we're pointing to the chisel used. Very straightforward in this, as this example. That's why I chose this. And let's just jump into the game one more time and take a look. All right, fans, we're back in Minecraft, and you can already see that this one has a different texture from this one, and that is absolutely fantastic. If I now shift right click it, you can see it now changes the texture back because, of course, it no longer has the data saved on it. Absolutely freaking fantastic. And like I said, the applications on this are almost endless because you can add the different components to any item stack, including vanilla ones, right? There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Now, then, of course, changing the textures on those, that's a little bit more complicated, but the idea still remains that you can add any sort of data to any sort of item stack. And I would say that is pretty freaking cool, man. Real nice. And that is it for this tutorial right here. Don't forget that you can get 14 days of early access when you join as a Stonebricks member on YouTube. And that's going to get you early access to, for example, this video right here, where we'll talk about custom bows. Hope to see you there. So, yeah.